Okay, all right. Welcome back to Soul Invictus. So, what we're going to talk today about is the light of the world. So, we're going to talk about John 8. I'm going to talk about that a bit. And then afterwards, I'm going to go ahead and answer a big question. So, this video is going to be a bit of a response and a bit of a conversation about the light of the world from John 8 in the Bible, okay? So I'm reading from the New American Bible here. This is a St. Joseph Medium Edition. If you can't see that, flip the mirror around. Um, Maybe next time I'll change the camera setting. But yeah, you can probably read it backwards. I grew up doing that sort of thing anyways. But this is a Catholic book publishing company. So this is from the Catholic book. So this is not a Freemason type of Bible, which some people, I've had arguments about that. When some people argue me, oh, you read from the King James. Nope. I've never read from the King James in my life. I've had this Bible when I was in a monastery when I was younger. That's the only Bible I've ever had. That's the only one I'll ever need. It's a pretty good one. So I'm going to go ahead and read from this. And the reason I want to do it like this, I'm going to try to do a lot more videos for this. And the reason behind I haven't been doing a lot of videos lately is because I've been trying to figure out, what to try to put up and what to try to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through John. I'm just going to get a feeling for which, passage I want to do and then talk about that. And so hopefully I won't overlap. But here's the thing. Once I finish this, which I'd like to start from the beginning and go forward, but right tonight I just want to do the light of the world. I don't know, I just had a feeling like I should do this. And I'll talk about my perspective a bit, and after that I'm going to go ahead and just answer some questions that I've gotten on my channel here. And so I do have a few different channels, but this one was specifically dedicated to my understanding of spirituality and my understanding of what Jesus Christ had to say and what he wanted to talk to us about. So some of this, actually most, if not all of this, is going to be Gnostic. So this isn't going to be directed towards Catholicism in particular, but this is going to be a very deep understanding of what Jesus had to say as far as spirituality is concerned. And so if you're looking for some way to, have some kind of, religious understanding, I'm really going to be talking more so about the spirituality of things. So that's where I'm going to be coming from. So I want you to probably just, take that into your heart for a bit and try to basically just look at it from an internal perspective. Okay, so let's go ahead and read this. I put this Bible study tools up here too, so if you want to follow along here you can. This is based upon whatever Bible study opens up for me here, so I'll have a link down below, but if you want to read it, go ahead. We're on John 8. I'm going to go ahead and read the light of the world. I'll just leave it here. I'll scroll up ahead when I need to. But I'm going to read from my Bible here, so if you see me looking down, it's because, well, I'm reading from my Bible here, so I'm going to go ahead and read this. And it starts, because we're on John 8, the light of the world is John 8:12. Sorry, I'm distracted. There's coyotes howling outside, and it can be kind of annoying. So, okay, so we're starting here. Oh, I can't. Oh, I actually can highlight it. Cool. All right, so number 12 right there. The description says right here, so if you're looking for it, I'm right there. It says the light of the world. But John 8:12, let's start here. Okay. All right. Jesus spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So the Pharisees said to him, testify on your own belief. Sorry. So the Pharisees said to him, you testify on your own behalf, so your testimony cannot be verified. Jesus answered and said to them, even if I do testify on my own behalf, my testimony can be verified, because I know where I came from and where I am going. But you do not know where I come from or where I am going. You judge my appearances, but I do not judge anyone. And even if I should judge, my judgment is valid, because I am not alone. But it is I and the Father who sent me. Pretty profound, hey? Even in your law, it is written that the testimony of two men can be verified. I testify on my behalf, and so does the Father who sent me. So they said to him, where is your Father? Jesus answered, you know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. He spoke these words while teaching in the treasury in the temple area, but no one arrested him because his hour had not yet come. So, there you go with that. But here's the thing. Here's the deal. This is what I want to talk about, and this is why I've gone down a very Gnostic perspective. So what I'm going to be talking about, and how I come to understand things now, is a very Gnostic way. And I'm trying to understand the past, as far as, because the thing is, I grew up Catholic for a long time, and I was taught that, oh, well, it had to be this way, it had to be this way, Jesus is advocating for, the Father that they're with. But there's a lot of confusion in here. And why would Jesus say, you know neither me nor my Father? If you knew me, you would know my Father also. Okay. So that's number 19 here. Yeah, right there. So this little part right here, I find it pretty amazing, because the fact is everybody's like, oh, well, Jews' God was the same God Jesus was talking about. Well, the thing is, their understanding of the God was a little warped, or that was not a righteous God, because Jesus is telling them right there, and right there, you don't know his Father. You don't. And there's plenty of references in the Bible that I can go over. I can do this again and again and again and again, and show you so many times that they don't know what the hell, I should probably use that word, they're following. If we get a little bit further into John, it's going to literally say, Jesus saying, you're following the devil. You are following the devil. You are not following the true creator, And so as far as the Gnostic understanding is concerned, you're looking at the creation source of everything being a loving creating source. It creates a lot of pretty much everything with a lot of love and care. And according to a Gnostic perspective, there was an entity that fell away from that, didn't want to work with the Holy creation source and just kind of begot some crazy, powerful entity. And that's apparently what I believe rules our world. And, you know, and so according to this, according to what Jesus is saying, he's saying that he came to help us. But the Jewish understanding of what they're saying, like, oh no, you're from what we understand, but we don't understand what you're talking about, and it's you sound like you're out of your mind. The Jewish people at the time, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, didn't understand Jesus because they weren't aligned with the true creator. The true creator. Now, if you look back at Sumerian records and you look back at other older records, it's going to start to confirm some of these things. And you're going to start to go, whoa, as soon as you go back and you read the book of Numbers, you'd be like, this God's a little bit nuts. He wants to, cast meteor doom on his own people if they don't agree with him or don't want to do something. Like, just the way that Jesus handles things and the way that his Father is with him in a spiritual sense. Like, my Father is with me right now. We're like, two spirits combined at the same time right now with me. But you Pharisees, you don't understand him. You're following the devil. You're not following the true creator source. And so this is the reason Jesus gets killed instead of gets crowned. He gets a crown of thorns. He doesn't get an amazing crown and to get to be seen as the leader of them. They don't get what he's saying. So they don't understand what he's saying, and and so you see a lot of religions going, oh, Jesus is advocating for exactly what the Sadducees and the Pharisees were trying to talk about. No, he was not. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. This is why Jesus gets killed. It's not so much like, Jesus understood that this was a very high potential that this would happen based upon looking at things. But the fact is, if Jesus was what the Jews needed, or not, what they wanted, he wouldn't have gotten killed. He wouldn't have died. They wouldn't have murdered him because they would have known the Creator. What they knew was the devil. Now, what they knew was the devil is mixed in the Old Testament. I'm just saying, that's what they knew. They didn't understand what Jesus had to say because Jesus came to bring compassion, love, and caring, the living waters, what's within you, that sort of thing. So when you go through it and you read it and you start to understand why, like, the Nag Hammadi and those old scriptures and stuff, they were lost in time until, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, found in caves, hidden, away from destruction. It just opens your eyes. It just makes you think, too. That's another confirmation. I didn't even need that to understand this when I was reading this when I was younger. I contested even theologians wondering, like, Jesus isn't advocating for what they were advocating for. He was completely against practically what they were trying to prescribe. They wanted to just take him out. They wanted to kill him. He wasn't promoting the temple with money. And he wasn't glorifying this sect, this religious sect that was going on. He wasn't promoting it, It wasn't so much like, oh, he's, coming back. He hates these people. No, he doesn't hate these people. He loves these people. He said he loves all these people. It's just that they had hate within them because of what they were following or the ideological understanding of what they did follow. What they thought they needed to follow was not of the creation source. Was it a God? Was it a source of energy? Sure. If it's a real thing, if you think you can kind of manifest something because you believe in it, maybe they created that thing. Or maybe that entity is the archon that a Gnostic understands as far as Well, it's not great. It's a power, Even Peter talked about what was it? Beware the powers and the principalities. I can't remember the quote right now, but it's been a while since I looked at that one. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and read one part here. I probably should start off at the beginning again and just kind of go through this. Initially, I was going through all the text and try to, put them all together, but it really doesn't make a lot of sense as far as just going through it, because I might as well just read John. John really describes what's going on with Jesus the best, whereas the other ones are just kind of like really clunky. It's basically like, you have synthetic oil versus regular oil. All the other scriptures are regular oil, and John is the synthetic oil. It's the better kind of oil. I'm just saying, it's kind of the better. It's the better focus. John really explains things in detail, whereas the other ones, they're kind of getting a really, they're getting a little puzzle to put together, because their minds aren't there yet, and that's a fact. There's a lot of people that don't really have their minds quite there yet. They're about to understand it, but they're like, well, but they just don't understand. Most of this is all spiritual. Because the fact is, we are spiritual beings. We are immortal spiritual beings. It's a true thing. It's an absolutely true thing. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with that. And you can go through John, you can go through a lot of stuff, and you're gonna see in here, there's just a lot of references in here that the old Jewish people didn't understand the true source of creator, which the true creator is a loving source of creation. And it didn't try to manipulate and get involved in a lot of stuff. Just created. But then you read a lot of what happens in the Old Testament, and it comes down and does a lot of stuff that people question, which is why a lot of people wonder about the Old Testament God, thinking it's a pretty wrathful desert God. Makes sense to me. As far as what Jesus had to say, because the fact is, if Jesus would have lied, here's the point. Here's the point. This is the reason why I talk about Gnostic stuff, and this will really confirm and help you understand a lot of things. If Jesus was trying to advocate for this Old Testament God, as far as everything that it did, and the way the Pharisees ran things, the way the Sadducees ran things, because they're trying to run things accordingly to what they remembered and what they knew from the Old Testament. From just saying Old Testament because from a Christian standpoint, but they're trying to do the best, and they're trying to do the things the right way, right? Jesus comes in and throws a wrench, a monkey wrench, into the gears, and it just brings everything to a halt. It's like, and everybody's looking at Jesus like, why did you do that? We already knew what we knew. We're already doing what we know and what we've been told. And Jesus is like, it's not about the physical, it's about the spiritual. And it just blows their mind. They don't know what to think. They're like, no, we have to continue this the way it's been. What we followed was the right way. Jesus, you're wrong, and you keep saying that kind of stuff, we're going to kill you. And then they killed him. And this is where we're at. And this is why a lot of people, they join some kind of Christian religion, and then they're like, but the New Testament, the Old Testament are together, so it has to be the same way. Well, a Roman emperor smashed them together so that those two sects would play nice and he could expand his territory. I'm just saying, that's kind of what happened long ago. And this is where we're at today, thousands of years later. So the point is, when you read what Jesus had to say, and you read a lot about the Old Testament kind of goes back and forth. Some of it sounds very good and helpful, and then some of it sounds very wrathful. I'm the God of vengeance. I'm the God of wrath. I'm blah, I'm a jealous God. I mean, it's like, really? Is that really the true creator? I don't know if that is. So there's a mixture of like some good elements in the Old Testament. There's a mixture of some, very judgmental, I'm going to smash you elements of an Old Testament God in the Old Testament. And you just wonder, like, how does this coincide with what Jesus had to say? And then when you read what Jesus had to say, he's like, no, 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 no. I'm not advocating for that. The Father's with me right now. And I'm telling you right now that what you guys are doing is wrong. And you don't know the Father. Plenty of times in here it says, you do not know the Father. You've never known the Father. So what were they following? The whole time in the desert, what were they following? Was it really the true source, the Creator? Jesus says they weren't following the Creator. What the hell were they following? You got to wonder. And then some people will say, well, yeah, Jesus was pretty radical. Yeah, he actually kind of was in a way, because that's why he had his apostles, he had his disciples, and they argued the stuffing out of what was going on with the Jews at the time. So when Jesus comes back again, well, literally later on he says he's going to send an advocate. So the next time someone comes, it's going to be an advocate, right? Someone advocating on his behalf. So an advocate for him, the way that Jesus was, will probably also be hated, because it won't be streamlined. It won't be like, oh, just, follow our traditions and do these particular rituals and do all these things the way that we have done it, and you'll be saved, because we're giving you your salvation, right? Jesus told the Samaritan woman she can have the living water inside of her right now. That's what he told her. So, it's like, it's almost literally like, I'm going to go ahead and answer a question here, but I got a question here, and it's a pretty long question. I'll go ahead and answer this, but it's almost like Jesus is kind of like an alien from another planet, because what the Jews were expecting was a war leader, a war horse leader, come down, boom, smash the Romans, smash, whoever's there, just crush them, take it over, kind of like what they did when they were moving, through the desert. They were just attacking other nations and destroying them, man, woman, and child. They were probably expecting some war leader like that to go and, send them to war, go out and kill, take it by force. Did Jesus do that? Or did Jesus tell Peter, you live by the sword, you die by the sword? What's he basically doing? He's basically giving him an option. He's like, you want to live that way, you can, but you're going to die that way. And that's not exactly, Jesus was basically saying it in a very disdained kind of way. Was the Old Testament God telling him to go kill man, woman, and child? Absolutely. Yeah. Or else it was, the people that felt that they were influenced by that, and that they had to go ahead and just, destroy other nations. So what Jesus had to say and what the Old Testament God had to say, not exactly balanced. Not on all the scales. Okay? Not exactly balanced. Not exactly the same thing. I don't think they are even the same thing. Now, are there some good inspirations in there in the Old Testament? Absolutely. There's a lot of good inspirations in the Old Testament. But when it came down to what the Old Testament God had to do compared to what Jesus had to say, Jesus wasn't exactly on the popular side. That's why he got killed. Because he wasn't advocating everything that, the Sadducees and the Pharisees were talking about, and saying that they followed the devil or they followed Satan. Just depends on which gospel you're reading here. So the cult of Saturnalia, or Saturn, the cult of Saturn, or maybe something like that, or maybe Satanists, or maybe they're a bit of both of the same thing. I don't know, but I don't really follow that kind of stuff. But so, anyways, I feel like I concluded with that, and I'm going to go ahead and answer a question here, which is a pretty long and kind of juicy question here, and I'll try to answer as much as I can. But let me pause for 1 second so I can get a drink real fast, and I'll be right back. Okay. So here's the question, the big, big question. Well, I certainly have learned a lot about evil in this world and the tricks they have played. Talking about the archons, I think. Um, Even fooling us with a variety of religious ideals. I'd like to know more about benevolent beings, where we are from, and how to get back there, as I believe archons try to trick us to stay here or in their trap. There are some new age theories, but none have resonated with me and seem like another trap. Like their belief in mass ascension. Seems a bit like the rapture hoax to me. Funny how many Christians call it a harvest. Yeah, I think it will be a mass ascension of souls, all right, when they kill off a bunch at once for their harvest. There doesn't seem to be a lot of info out there on benevolent beings or where we're from. Another star system doesn't seem plausible, as the universe is a hologram, and I think thus archonic control, their control just is their control just this solar system? Anyway, I know those are tough questions, but if you have any info or guidance where to research, that'd be great. A video focus on a positive divine. So a video on a focus on a positive divine. This is kind of that right there. The actual original creator is a loving creator, and it just gives and creates. It's an unconditional love. That's why all this exists. If you break me down, or if you break yourself down, as far as an atom goes, it all turns into tiny little light particles. Everything at the smallest level is a light particle. It's just that this look here, the video and everything you have can touch, can feel, is very, very, very condensed light particles. And they just assort themselves in different ways, like how Legos, you can build Legos into different things. You can make different creations with Legos. And so if you took a bunch of Lego bricks and, like, let's say they're all the exact same kind of Lego brick, and you build something with it, you could build a totally different structure with it. It just depends on how you stack the bricks together. It's the same thing with light. The light particles come together and then they form, into atoms, and they form into other things, and then they make molecular structures, and then everything just forms from that. But everything's light, just little particles of light. That's what it comes down to. And this light at some point starts to push against each other and make ripples and waves, and then you've got sound, and then you've got color, and it just creates more and more and more. So as far as, like, where we come from, yes, there is an actual creation source. But is this world kind of a trap? I mean, I think a lot of people kind of think that too. But I think ultimately I think it was a trap for a long time, but there were people that came here to help out. And, Jesus is definitely, I believe, the main one. Were there others that came? Possibly. It seems like there's a lot of people, talking about it. It's hard to say ultimately, because you want to literally just say, well, my way is the only right way, and that sort of invalidates everything else. And the fact is, like, I can't just flat out go and say that everything that everybody else said was totally wrong, because, if I wasn't, here's the thing, if I was born over in India, I might really believe those beliefs a little bit more than if I was born here. I think a lot of the times it depends on where you incarnate into, as far as, like, what you can come to understand. Like, if you were born in a different country, you might be whatever religion or a spiritual understanding that country has. And so does it mean that Jesus came to moved to other places or tried to spread his message? Yes, he definitely did. And as far as his persona, it spread pretty far. But as far as, like, other beings coming here to help out? Could they have come here as other types of beings for other people? There's a lot of people, saying that that's the truth. And it's hard for me to say, well, no. It's kind of hard to say that because Jesus in the Bible, he literally says he, you know, saw Abraham before he was born. So is Jesus a time traveler? Maybe. Maybe he's from a different type of space. We talk about our universe. I literally don't. I think I've heard somebody else say that there's a lot of things in this world are kind of inverted. And there's a lot of things that are kind of wrong. And I heard someone say that, we do bad in order to be promoted and seen as great, and what's seen as good is seen as bad. There's a lot of instances where that does actually seem to be the case, whereas if you try to put everybody else down to lift yourself up, you might move up to like a lot of high internet fame. And you literally just stepped all over everybody else just to put yourself up to this super high position. Just because you're like, hey, everybody else sucks and I'm awesome, and then you shoot up like a rocket. Everybody's just like, yeah, look at that person. They're, look at how they just put everybody down and they're at the top. I mean, it does seem to take place here. It does seem to be the factor that there's a lot of negative things here that get promoted, and because they're promoted, or the people that are promoting a lot of negativity, to try to get some kind of fame and get some kind of fortune with that, they shoot up like a like a rocket. And whereas other people are trying to help out in a real serious sense, people are like, man, it's boring. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to listen to that. It's boring. I want something exciting. I want to see something insane. That's why I guess carnivals and, just extreme things seem to be like one of the most popular things out there. Because people just get sort of indoctrinated into the craziness of the world, and that's what they kind of want to focus on. And they don't want to see what's true. They just want to see what's crazy. And then when you watch a lot of crazy stuff, you start to act that way too. You start to do a lot of crazy things as well. And so watching it, reading it, going towards that kind of stuff, that will let you be a part of that type of ideology, that type of society, that type of whatever. But Jesus is saying, where he's from and where his father is, these Jews don't even know. They don't know. So he lives outside of probably this whole universe, potentially, or outside of like a vast amount of whatever that this whole world. I mean, initially, if you read some Gnostic stuff, it says that the Archon was put into a cloud so that, the initial creator wouldn't see it. So was this cloud our universe? The one verse? Maybe the fact is we're told all the time this is a universe, this is one verse, when actually there are more than this. There might be more than one universe, but we're told it's one universe. So if we're told it's one universe, when we die, we might think, well, there's nowhere else to go. I don't remember anything. Maybe I'll just come back here. There's only one universe. There's nothing else out there. I got to come back here. Maybe that's a part of the trick too. Maybe the trick is that everything you're told as far as like the way the world is constructed, maybe all of that's been a lie. As far as like, what we understand. Maybe not so much a lie in a sense that, it's a complete fabrication, like, because some people talk about this being a hologram and all that. I think the hologram really just stems from the fact that we're just, as far as a physical being, we've been condensed into very like if you condense a particle, like, how carbon or diamonds are formed, in a piece of coal, it's pressurized, and a diamond, something beautiful, is formed from within that pressure. We are sort of the diamonds. What if this whole world is pressurizing us to the point that, you know, eventually we're going to, maybe produce something good out of it. But I don't know. That's a really tough question, honestly, because it's hard to fully understand. The fact is, like, I just did my past video talking about my dreams, my understandings of stuff. And in my dreams that I have, I don't recognize this world. I don't recognize this world as being a part of that. There's some people that, like I could look at and feel like, ooh, it's weird. I feel like I remember this, or like I feel like I can understand this. Like I look into some things and I look into some past people and I wonder, was I there? Was I a part of that? Did I reincarnate and know these people at some point? But it's all just a little bit fuzzy. But a lot of my really strong dreams, which are lucid dreams, I don't have like memories of this planet. Like not like this planet, like some other planet. I don't know where. Like I'd have to look into that more, or just dream more. Which actually it's fun because when I'm going into a lot of dreams, I'm starting to feel like I'm understanding more about my past, which I think that this world is really set up to help you remember your past. And I think the fact is, if you try to let people tell you that, oh, we're going to reincarnate here over and over and over again, it's just going to keep happening. Oh, if this happens, you're going to reincarnate here just to make sure that you don't do this and that. Make sure you don't do that and you won't reincarnate. The fact is, you just believe you're going to go back to where you need to go so you can have your, you can go back, you can go to the heaven, where Jesus is, trying to help them understand this, is that they don't understand, like the Jews don't understand what Jesus is trying to say. If we can start to open up and have that living water inside of us, and we can share that with other people, we are going to open up to more things than what we've been told. And, as far as like, people talking about, oh, the rapture and stuff like that. I mean, I have this feeling like if you, do things like as suicides and that sort of thing, if you do something like that, you might be forced back here. And you might have to relive this life again because you didn't complete your mission. And I think you come here wanting to do things, not just like you're just pushed here and blah, blah, blah. I think you come here wanting to do things. You have an idea as to what you're going to do, and you try to complete that. You try to do that. As long as you do most of it, I think you're pretty much finished it and you're done. Because I don't know, it's hard to say whether you're going to, like what the Egyptians would think, like, oh, you're going to turn into a sun and then you're going to create a planet. I don't know if that's the case. That seems a bit much, honestly, because if you're just a sun giving off light and heat and energy to, a planet and, watching it grow, I mean, you'd be more like looking at like an antiquarium. I don't know. It just would be, what would be the point? I mean, but I think as far as like moving out and, becoming something better, becoming something greater, even Jesus said you can do greater things than these. Now, why would he say something like that? If he's the son of the creator, why would he say that? It basically means that this body here, my body, your body, is a shell, like a nut, like a peanut. You got a shell, but inside's the seed. Once that seed's planted, it's gonna grow. That's why Jesus talks about seeds like all the time. Where the seeds land. This is what are the potentials that are going to happen to them. If it lands on the road, the crows might come and eat it. So it depends on where you plant yourself as far as like what's going to grow from that. If you put yourself out there where you can't grow, something might come and try to take all that away from you. If you put yourself in a situation where you can grow, you're going to be able to produce something really beautiful. But, as far as like where we come from, where do we have to go, this whole universe, like in a sense, you could be right that, it's just a hologram. It's not all that important. But the fact is, it is important for you to actually do something great from yourself. A lot of people want to just go and this is the reason why there's a lot of, I mean, it's good to have, inspirational stuff out there to help you, but a lot of people get really focused on that and they just kind of think, oh, I just have to just watch all these inspirational things. At some point I'm gonna have the energy to do it. I'm gonna get out there. You don't do things unless you do things. It sounds pretty simple, and yet it's the way things are. If you don't tell yourself, oh, I need to go ahead and do this, you don't keep. The thing is, some people really need that kind of motivation. Not me. If I just think, oh, I need to go and do this because I haven't done this in a while, or I need to go and do this because, oh, I could do something with that. I just like that. I go ahead and do it. But some people need some little bits of motivation to actually, they got to think about it for a while before they can actually move into that next step, where they're actually acting upon it. They're actually creating it, because that's the same thing with like games. I play a lot of strategy games, and if someone doesn't come up with the idea, someone doesn't talk about it, someone doesn't do any of that sort of stuff, no one's going to make that game because nobody is going to care. So only, you make it's like if you were to create a play, for theater, or create a game, or create a book. You have to have the idea, you have to mull over it for a while, and then once you've done that enough times, then you can actually start writing it. You can turn it into something. It could turn into a book. It could turn into a playwright. It could turn into a movie. It turns into something big. Your idea has physically fleshed out into something because of your ideas. Now, I know it's not like, oh, I'm creating magic and I just, create all this, do all this magical stuff out of thin air, I think the fact is, this world is set up in such a way that unless we have the kind of belief that Jesus was talking about, the belief that Jesus was talking about was faith the size of a mustard seed, which is what a lot of children have. They have this belief, oh, they're going to do this big thing, oh, they're going to do that, and then parents are like, no, it's not going to happen. Everybody just steps on their imagination. I think that's a bad idea, because Jesus always said to the children, let the little children come to me, because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Why is that? Faith of a child, belief of a child, that you can do something great. And so for this planet, for this world here, we have this giant love of all these fantastic movies and all these really cool things happening where, magic is happening and or people are flying or something like that. We have all this fantastical love for that. Why do we have that? Maybe because this world doesn't offer that to us on a platter. Maybe in a different world out there somewhere, or maybe in a different spiritual realm, after this life is over, you have that ability to do that. What people would call a 4D world or the next level, I think other people are coming to the understanding, but through different guides or different help to get there. Now, some people might say, well, that's probably the devil. That's probably, if you think that's not the right path for you, then don't go that path. Avoid it. But if you think that maybe they've had a different helper at some point that, let's say, on another part of the world, because here's a simple thing. When Jesus came, he only came to this one spot in the world, and it took hundreds of years to spread out that message, whereas everybody else had other spiritual teachers. And to just say that nothing that they ever learned or other people ever learned or anything like that doesn't have any valid approach, So it's a big question. It's a tough question. You really got to look inside and just say, is this something that is it like what Jesus had to say? Is it like what Jesus had to say? Because I really resonate with what Jesus had to say, and I believe that, and I do too, very much so. I believe that he is the Son of the Creator, and I think that I literally think Jesus broke into this world, whereas whatever ran this world freaked the hell out and wanted him killed and used certain people to try to do that, because it was like, this guy is not from here. What is he doing here, and why is he doing that? This is not how this is supposed to be run. And it really threw a lot of people off, and I did not like it. So, I mean, as far as like a lot of other things are concerned, with spirituality and all that stuff that other people are talking about, they're talking about spirituality. Jesus was talking about spirituality too. But when you read in here, you'll read initially in John, you'll get to the point where you're going to read in John where Jesus says, you won't understand something unless I give you a sign. So here's the sign. And from that point forward, he kept doing signs. He kept producing miracles. He kept doing the circus act, like they wanted to see. They wanted to see something cool, They didn't just want to know, oh, well, if you give yourself this living water that's inside of you, you're going to be good. They didn't want to know stuff like that. They wanted a carnival act. They wanted to go to a fair. They wanted to see cool tricks. They wanted to see explosions and, cotton candy. I mean, they didn't have cotton candy back at the time, but they wanted free food. They wanted miracles. That's why they followed him with the fish. It's not so much like, oh, it's a miracle. Everybody's like, hey, free food. Yeah, free hot dogs and fish and bread. And maybe they didn't have hot dogs at the time, but that's basically what I'm saying. The masses would just run to free food and a carnival act. That's why we still have fairs today. And we have summer fairs today, is because this is kind of what we want to see, that we want to have fun, with that sort of thing. We want that. But what Jesus had to say was a very serious message, and people were like, well, but that's boring. I want to see something fun. I want to, do something fun. And Jesus went on ahead, and after he said, that people want miracles, he started performing some miracles for them to just to see it and be like, hey, I did this. Now do you understand? They're like, yeah, free food. Let's keep going for that. Let's do that again. Most of them that's the message they got, which is why John understood what Jesus had to say. That's why he wrote it down. But the point is, when you listen to these other people talk about spiritual stuff, if the spiritual stuff that they're talking about gets you to be angry, gets you to be kind of hateful, gets you to want to go out and attack and do this stuff and be unlike what Jesus had to say, then yeah, it's probably from the devil, But if it's still basically the same message, if you look at, the Zoroastrians, I think one of their key mottos was, and the Magi are the ones that found Jesus, because they followed the star, is good thoughts, good words, good deeds. What did Jesus embody? What did he embody? So are other, religions to a degree from like just a central standpoint, what Jesus had to say with the golden rule, love the Creator with all your heart, mind, and soul, love your neighbor as yourself. It's intermingled. So as far as like an arcana control goes, and other things are concerned, you just have to, you really have to just kind of look within yourself. If this is something that's promoting a lot of internal anger, if what other people have to say is promoting something that Jesus has not been attuned to, and you feel like that's going to lead you away, then don't follow that thing. Follow what Jesus had to say then. That's the best advice I can give. But as far as like universes go, I don't think that this is the only universe, which is why the word universe is Latin from uni, which means one. I think there are more universes out there. I don't know how many, but I don't. I think there's a lot of things that we've been told that aren't 100%. And whether it's due to ignorance or it's due to suppression, one of the two maybe. But yeah, I think there's people that want to come here because they either want to learn something or they want to help, and I don't think you ever truly die. You could take on a form, like a hardened form, a physical form like this. I don't think you're ever going to truly die. I don't think you can. Not in a spiritual sense. I don't think it's possible. So, yeah, I think, you're looking to figure out how to get out of this and all that. I would say dreams are a good way. Look at your dreams. Look at what that represents. Another thing is too, like I've started to realize too, a lot of things that are in your life where you think they're distractions, they're really not distractions. It's like there's things that are in your life because they need to be there. You need to work with some people, that you probably know a lot of people, or maybe a lot of people know you, and maybe they want some help with something, and they're in your life for a reason. Everything is in your life as a reason. Most people look at people in their life or situations, they're like, oh, this is an obstacle, I need to get around it. Maybe you need to learn how to work with that in order to grow, because it could help you, the people, the situation, whatever, it could help you as you help it. And that way could be the kind of, spiritual growth that could happen in your life. So I think a lot of people, just think they're going to go on this fantastic do this and do that, but a lot of the time it's really just what's happening in your house with your friends, your neighbors, people and I think the fact is, Jesus kind of advocated for that, when Jesus told the apostles, go out, and talk about what you're going to talk about. And if someone accepts you in their house, go in. If they don't accept you, shake the sand off your, shake the dust off your sandals. Act like, just don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Just get rid of, all those negative connotations that could happen or whatever happened there. Move on to someone that you can talk to, that you can be with and help. So I think I described that pretty much. As far as like a mass ascension goes, I think what they're trying to describe is like how like the zodiac cycles change and how they feel like it's going to be a part of the play that's going to move into a new cycle, and so they're kind of basing it on that. But some people might be basing it upon like, oh, certain people are going to go at a certain time, and you know, it's hard to say, but I think that's a part of it. As far as yeah, there's not a lot of. I mean, there. As far as what some people are saying, like not a lot of information, info on benevolent beings. You're just gonna have to look at which ones were fully benevolent. Um, like if I was to look at some other cultures and look at some stuff, I would say the only ones I've really looked at with any serious degree, maybe Thor in a way, as far as the Norse go, but there has been a little contention there too. But yeah, it's hard to say. You'd have to really read up on it. You'd have to, and not just read up on it in a modern sense. You'd have to read up on it in a past sense. Like if I was going to read a book written in the 1920s, I'd have to get into the mind frame of the people of the 1920s. If I was going to read a book on something like this, I'd have to try to get in the mind frame as to how the people lived back at this time, in the Bible. Because that's important. Not a lot of people do that. They just read it, they take it from their perspective, their understanding now, thinking that back then is the same thing as now, which is not. It's not. Cultures and the way things are run at different periods and times will be described differently. So, you know, um, as far as like other benevolent beings go, it's that's a really that's a big question. That's a tough call. But you kind of have to look at it like were these were these other benevolent beings acting like Jesus, or were they trying to, you know, take you in a different route, you know? So, yeah, some pretty tough questions I'd have to say, but like are we totally from here? I if you believe in an archon, you believe in a being that has sort of trapped people here, then if you think that we're trapped here, which in some ways it could be possibly the case, but if you think you're trapped here, then guess what? You're not from here. You're not from here. You're from somewhere else. And Jesus even says, I don't have a place to rest my head. I don't have a house. I don't have a home here. Plenty of other little references like that too. So are we from somewhere else? Very highly potentially, you know. But would you say some people are from here? Well, maybe some souls got born here and then they had to go through this life, and maybe they got tricked into coming back and then they came back here and did it again. They got tricked again, they got come back and maybe they do it again. But yeah, that's a very interesting question. It really comes down to like at the end, it's about your beliefs. That's why Jesus says about the little children, and that's what I think too. I think I I actually feel kind of bad because I think a lot of the hardcore atheists are gonna either get tricked to come back here or just believe that they are nothing and just feel like they're nothing for a long time and then just be in a stagnant state and really never be able to do anything, never go to a heaven because they believed what they were told. And it's a shame because for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, different religious cultures all over the place have talked about heaven, have talked about an afterlife. And you get up to what? I don't know what time it was, 1940s, 1950s, whatever. And then people are talking about, oh, there's nothing after this, and then atheists are just everywhere, and then maybe they don't get to go anywhere. It's maybe they have to recycle back here because they've had their beliefs tainted. that's another interesting question too, which actually makes me kind of sad because, there's people I know, that believe that, and I feel bad for them because a lot of people are like, well, an atheist is going to see, what's really going on, and maybe they will, but the fact is, when you have a really strong belief in something, like, you get told this all the time. Let's say you grow up and, you were a good kid and you got told you did so many things wrong all the time, and then later on in your life you realize, no, I actually never really I never did anything that wrong. But growing up, you always felt very apologetic. You felt like you had to do this right, you had to do that right, you had to be a kind of a perfectionist at things, and you come up to realize you were actually pretty good, but you were scolded all the time because you had a very, like, you know, that kind of parenting, where you couldn't do anything right. And so the way you've lived your life was based upon your past. So that makes the same sense where you're going to live your future based upon how your past was conditioned. Now, if you let that happen for a long time and you don't break free of that, you're going to stay within that same kind of conditioning, and you're going to believe, oh, I was really bad, so I'm going to go to hell. And I think you're going to literally put yourself into hell. You're going to create your own hell, or you're going to go to whatever hell that could have been created from maybe the Archon here, and you're going to spend however much time in there until whether you decide to break free or be like, I don't want to be here anymore. And then maybe you follow the cycle that you were taught and believed the whole time, so you had to come back here and do this again. And maybe some of the Archons feed off that energy. Maybe that energy that's produced through that whole cycle gives them like living energy, or they like to watch this carnival act. So I think the fact is, like, and it's a really interesting dynamic, because if you start to think good thoughts, good words, good deeds, you do what Jesus had, what he talked about, love your love of your neighbor, love of your friends. You just are there for them. Good things start to happen. But if you start to doubt, question it, and then go down all these negative roads and all these things, then you have all these negative signs and all these things that just pop up out of nowhere, and you're like, but I knew I was right, because you created the situation to be right and a negative factor. And now that you've created that, you're going to live that life for a while until you decide to change that mentality. And it's a really weird dynamic, but you go one road, the high road, and you just have this belief, like, you're just going to stay completely positive and shoot up and move forward. It's just going to get better and better and better, just because you're just like, I don't need to focus on any of that stuff in the past that dragged me down. I don't have to focus on that. I can focus on a happy future, and I can have that. And all that stuff, all those negative things, all those terrible things, they just fall away. They don't cling to you, because you're moving up into a new level. This is what a lot of people in certain spiritual sides are talking about too, because they're coming to that understanding too. But maybe they had some influence from Jesus, which I think there's been a lot of heavy Jesus influence with a lot of other spiritual teachers too. I think they're just not giving the right proper reference to Jesus Christ, because they never really read through the whole book. All they know is that from what they were told, that Jesus is directly tied to a lot of the Old Testament stuff. Although Jesus says that you guys don't know the Father because only I know him and you never knew him. So what was it that they were following? Half good, half bad? Is that it? Is that a part of the what is that? The mysticism, the Kabbalah? Is it something like that? Is that essentially what that's all about? Which maybe, It's probably part of that. So, yeah, there's a lot out there, and a lot of people, when they go and they try to reference something, and it could very well be that they want to reference Jesus, but they don't want to reference Jesus because they feel like, the tie-in with the Old Testament, God of wrath. Like, how does that make any sense according to spirituality? So I'm just going to go ahead and start talking about spiritual things, and take core concepts of what Jesus had to say and then make my own thing. So that's another thing that happens. So as far as like what's out there and what Jesus had to say, if you're looking at what other people are saying and you're trying to get a perspective, just look at it and just see, does this coincide with what Jesus had to say? Does it coincide with how he acted towards the people? What he wanted to, get out as far as his message and all that. And if it kind of does, maybe, you probably could listen to a little bit. But, if you really want to focus on what Jesus had to say, definitely just focus on that. Because I think that'll really help you out a lot. And that's all I really got to say for this video. It's been kind of long, actually. I didn't realize it was going to be this long. But thanks for watching. And I will try to make another video. And if I got any more questions, I'll go ahead and try to address that. I hope I addressed the questions pretty well. I don't think I really missed anything. But yeah, if you think there's other star systems, other verses out there, I think there potentially are. I think everything, or maybe not everything, but a lot of things we've been told is probably not totally true. And it could be, in a sense, to probably try to trap us. I think things are told you in life to try to trap you here, so you feel like you have to come back and keep fixing and keep fixing and keep fixing and keep fixing. And you suffer more. You don't have to do that. If you stop focusing on the suffering and focus on the loving parts you can be for other people, you are going to produce that love. You are going to resonate that love for others, and they're going to see it, and they're probably going to think, how are they doing that? I want to do that too. They might ask you a question. Some people that are maybe more intuitive or be like, will probably be able to resonate that back with you. And as light shines off of a mirror and shiny things, it just gets brighter and brighter and brighter. So I hope that's I hope this answered a few questions here. But as far as the light of the world, I think I just explained it right at the end there. With bouncing light off of mirrors and shiny surfaces, it just, it gets so bright that most people can't not look at it. So I think I'll just finish with that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for staying tuned to Soul Invictus. If you want to see more, please contact me somehow, and I will definitely get on and do a little bit more. Maybe next time I'll start up with John 1, and I'll just go through John 1 and just get through the whole thing, apparently. So maybe I'll do that. All right. Good day and good night. And go with the love of Jesus Christ.